They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
All right.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight on Rogueways, it is my pleasure to welcome a veteran of the paranormal and beyond, our expert on the ghostly and the demonic, on the thinning of the veils and liminal spaces between dimensions. He is the psychic, the medium, the author, and the paranormal specialist who also brings the wilderness to us as a motorcycle enthusiast. John Russell, welcome to Rogueways. Back to Rogueways, I should say. And how are you doing tonight?
Lindsay, thanks for having me back. Yeah, my second appearance. I'm really excited to be back here with you. We had such a great Halloween interview. That was so good. And nice to be back here again in the new year. And I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've had a very good day, good start to the new year. We just had the new moon and everything just feels fresh and like it's moving in new directions. And I love that feeling.
Oh, God, let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so for real.
It's been a year.
It has been. Well, and it brought a lot of good things along with all the crises and stuff. So we can put a little sugar on top and be grateful for some of it at least. But I do want to share something with my audience that I'm really passionate about right now, and that's that a friend of mine, Donald Soff, has found that he has colon cancer, and he's doing and he's going to do his best to kick cancer's butt, and he's doing that in the ways that I think a lot of us appreciate, which are functional medicine and sort of more natural routes. And so that can get quite pricey, and I'm going to just ask all of the rogue warriors out there, all the listeners, all the watchers, all the people who are in this community to support our family right now. If you can, I'm going to throw a link in right now to all the chats. And that is a link directly to his GoFundMe. And the thing is, even if you feel like you don't have all that much, even like $2, $1, $5, it all adds up. And if every single one of us can give even just a little bit, or maybe you feel like you can give more, that's how we all can get by. We can support each other in that way, and then everyone has enough. So I hope that you can find it in your heart. If maybe you were going to tip the show today, maybe you can give that to Donald instead. Just click that link, and if you can, share it anywhere where you think that people might be able to donate a little too, then that would also be great. So we're all supporting Donald tonight, and if you have nothing to give, then that's okay. You can also just give your love and just send Donald some thoughts and some intentions of healing and prayer, and just visualize him winning this and coming out on top, as we know he will. So that I thank you all for whoever can share in that way. Thank you so much ahead of time. And I also want to make sure everyone knows we're starting Brighter You next week, Wednesday, 6-week course. It is all about you improving your spiritual connection, widening your channels, deepening your understanding of the gifts you already have, and learning how to apply those and offer them to other people as well, especially in service. And so it's a beautiful course for people who feel the call and want to serve at a higher level and a clearer, more uplifted level. And then we also do the weekly meditations twice a week. Every week you can join for a month at a time and just come meditate with us, and we're always more powerful together. So both of those are available on rogueways.org for all of you out there. You're all invited to either of those if you feel so inclined. And finally, John, back to you with the pointless question of the episode. I felt like since you were here on Halloween last, I wanted to stick with sort of a Halloween-y theme with the pointless question, and I'm going to ask you, do you prefer what's best? Hard candy, chewy candy, crispy candy, or not candy at all, and something maybe crunchy and salty instead?
Oh, God. All candy. I
All
love candy.
all sugar.
Any candy, any kind of candy. I love candy. I'm a candy fanatic. I have been ever since I was a kid, and I'm 67 now, fixed to be 68, and I still adore candy. I love candy.
I have a sweet tooth myself. I go through phases, and lately I'm on the
Yes,
chewy soft thing. So I like
right.
licorices and all this stuff, and I found
Milky
this.
Ways and
Yeah.
midnight Milky Ways and
It's all horrible. I should have asked something way higher minded than that, but this is where
no, that's
this is
good.
where I'm
That's
at
good.
today.
Listen, people, we get so heavenly minded, we're no earthly good sometimes. So,
That's
we
true.
live on this planet. We have to be practical about the ways in which we have to live on this planet. And, I've told people for years and years, people always want to ascend to some high-minded something or
Yeah.
some noble something or this, that, and the other. Hey, the guy that drives the street sweeper has just as an important job as, people higher up. The streets have to be cleaned, the garbage has to be picked up. And we have to face the fact that, look, we're not all endowed with these higher gifts and abilities that we would like to be. I can't be a concert pianist. I can't be a marathoner because of my health issues and all these things. So we have to realize that we have our limitations. The worst thing that we've ever done to people is to tell them you can be anything you want to be, because you cannot.
That's true.
Even if you have good health and good looks and good intelligence and good opportunities, you're going to piss off somebody along the way that has way more power and money than you do. And they're going to say, get this guy out of here. So we do have to be realistic about things. And it doesn't mean that we don't strive. It doesn't mean that we don't try. It doesn't mean that we aren't positive, but it means that we have to be realistic in what we're doing. And then that's when we find success. And when we quit comparing ourselves to others and say, okay, what are my gifts? What's my niche? What can I do? Let me perfect that. Let me get good at that. Let me be my own competition instead of worrying about what's so-and-so doing. And then that's when we find success.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's so important. And, I find, people have said, like, oh, how did you get into podcasting and doing this show and all of this? And strangely, every single thing I've loved in my life all came together in one place at one time
Yeah.
in this venture. And it's
And led
interesting.
you
I'm
to
like,
this.
it's
Yeah,
almost like I was preparing myself for this, actually. And I think
exactly right.
a lot of people wouldn't even think this was my highest achievement. But to me, it is, and it
Absolutely.
took all
Absolutely.
those things. And each of those things was me just saying, I really love this. I'm going to do that for a while. Like,
Yeah.
now I want to try this other thing. I'm going to do that
It's
for a
like
while.
when I get discouraged, my wife will tell me, you don't realize how many people you've touched that you may never even get that feedback, but you've made a big difference in their life. And, that's what keeps you going.
Yeah, if anyone out there is listening and John has touched your life, tell him so. When people tell me,
Yeah.
oh, you made this huge difference in this, I'm like, that's my payment. Like, that's my
Yeah.
reward. I love that. And
It's the greatest feedback. And the other day, we recently moved, and so I'm going through a bunch of boxes and things and a bunch of things that I found. And from way back in New York, decades ago, I found these emails. I had printed them out, saved them and printed them out. And I found these emails that clients had sent to me telling me what a difference my readings had made for them and what a difference my insights and predictions had made for them and how much had come true and how much was helpful and beneficial. And it was like, wow, this is so neat. This is so amazing, to find this after all these years. And it does help to get the feedback every now and then.
It definitely does. I love that. Yeah, and what we were talking about also reminds me of this trend we have now where we're telling everyone, like, oh, you have to go to college, you have to go to
Yeah.
college, you have to go to college. And I'm like, no, some people don't have to go to college. In fact,
Exactly.
probably most people don't have to go to college. What do you want to do? Does it require
That's
college?
That's it.
No.
And
don't
right
know.
now the trades are where it's at.
Yeah.
Construction, electrical, plumbing, all that. The trades are where it's at right now. And we need more and more of those qualified people, and they make outrageously good money, when they get
Yes.
well trained and get into the deal. So yeah, that just goes back to, spiritually, you have to figure out what cranks my boat, what floats my boat, what gets me going, what makes me want to get up in the morning and do it again this day, and when you find that, then you found your path.
Yeah, I knew an electrician once who, was saying like, well, people just think of electricians as like, it's skilled and it's important, but like they don't really think it's a little menial labor or hard labor or however you want to think of that.
Right.
But he's like, I do art. My wires go like this, and I curl them around. And when I look at it, like, this is an art piece I've made, and I put my intention into it. And I was thinking, who wouldn't want that electrician, right?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've watched home improvement shows where somebody would walk in and go, oh, so-and-so plumbed this, or so-and-so wired this. They could see their signature and what they did,
Like
so that's,
Picasso.
you do a job well done. Exactly.
That's beautiful. Well, right before we started the show, we were talking about somehow radio frequencies or cloud busting or something.
Cloud busting.
Yeah.
Cloud busting. Yeah, let me tell you about cloud busting, Lindsay. Cloud busting goes back, like I mentioned, I'm almost 68, and this was a technique I studied back when I was in my teens. And you really don't hear much about it anymore. I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, geez, nobody knows what cloud busting is now. So to cloud bust, what you do is you go outside on a clear day. You don't want a lot of high wind. You don't want a stormy day. You want a clear day with just a few puffy clouds here and there gently floating by. And you take a small cloud and you focus on it. And from your third eye, you visualize this beam going out like a laser beam and hitting this cloud. And when it hits this cloud, it impacts it and begins to break it apart. That's what you visualize. You visualize that very strongly, and you keep holding that vision the entire time. And you send this thought to the cloud. Thank you for breaking up. Thank you for accepting this energy, and thank you for dissipating. And you keep doing that. And when you get proficient at this, and this is one of the techniques that they used to teach people back in the early days of teaching psychic techniques and paranormal techniques, is because nearly everybody can do it on their first try and have a great success with it. And it's like it's a way to demonstrate, hey, we've got some power here with which we can affect the physical realm. So when you really do this with full focus and full concentration, the cloud will just vanish. The cloud will just dissipate and go away. And I did this. I hadn't done this in a long time, and I was sitting out in a state park by a river on a bench and had that ideal day, and these little puffy clouds were floating by, and I sent this energy up there and dissipated this cloud. And I had sent the energy so strongly that even after I stopped literally and focusing on it, and just was enjoying the rest of the day, every cloud that came through that area where I had sent that energy would hit that spot and immediately vanish. So we can affect things with our mind power, our psychic power physically. And the extension of that came through to me, and a real world practical effect came through to me. What if we collectively sit down every day and focus that energy towards viruses, illnesses, diseases? If we can bust up clouds, can't we bust up a little teeny tiny virus? Yeah. So, that's one thing that we can begin to look at. And like I say, we need to realize that we do have these powers, that they are available to us. They do work in the real world if we'll practice them, if we'll give it an honest try and develop that. And then that's the real world application of that development, is not just going out with your neighbor and sitting on their porch and saying, hey, watch me break this cloud up. Well, that's a neat parlor trick, but you need to take that energy then and say, where can I go with that? And think about, busting up the viruses, busting up sickness, illness, disease. Like this gentleman we were talking about earlier, let's bust up that cancer in his body.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that. And if you can send energy up into the sky and impact a cloud, that shows you that energy can be sent anywhere. So we don't have to be there with that guy. We can transmit that energy to him, and he can receive that. And so that's a message I'd leave with everybody to try. Get out, try that cloud busting technique. When you learn that you can do it, when you see the results from that, then go, okay, now how can I translate this into something positive? If you've got sick friends, sick loved ones, whatever, send that energy into them for healing. Yes. And, say the same thing, receive this healing. Whatever is hurting you or killing you or sickening you, let's safely kill that and get it out of your body and restore you to health, and send that message and send that energy and focus on that energy. And it does work. We can do that.
It's absolutely true. There's so many examples too that we can point to, like the Masuro Emoto with the water, crystals and the
Yes,
right,
yes.
sending
The
energy.
healing power of water, yeah.
And we're water, right? The clouds are
Yes,
water. This
that's
is
right.
one kind of crystalline form, I think, that like amplifies this energy that we can do. And we had
Right,
an intention meditation group, and we had 100% success rate, except for one person who did it as like a joke or as like a like they
right,
didn't actually,
right.
that person didn't get anything out of it. Which, I mean, yeah, if you're an asshole, you're not going to, I guess. But but
Exactly,
otherwise,
exactly.
I think we're so
Yeah,
powerful together, and when we join together in a group with this intention. So if everybody listening right now, no matter when
yeah,
you're listening or watching this live or not, if you just think right now, I'm not sure who Donald is, but Donald, let's send Donald to visualize him well, healthy
yes,
and well in every way, and just visualize that dissipating from his body and just light filling him and him healthy and vital.
absolutely,
Even just that moment
absolutely.
of doing that. And then imagine if we did it longer. Uh,
Well, that's it. You have to have, people don't realize the great power there is in numbers. When we come together in numbers and we are focused on a single goal together, that's when we generate some real results and we get some real power. And like you say, don't just do it one time, go, wow, that was great. That felt great. Now what's on TV?
right.
Continue every day, sometime during the day to make the time to do that. And, that's one of the keys to success. We have to realize that it takes practice, number one. It works better if we can do it in a group with that unity. And it takes continuity sometimes. Now, I have seen healing miracles take place where, boom, one time and done, and the person was good forever and a day. And then I've seen other cases where it took weeks, months, years of focused effort and energy to correct, whatever condition that person was undergoing. And healing is a bizarre, 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 mysterious thing. I have had, since I have been a child, I have had severe multiple chronic health issues.
Mm.
And it has required most of the time the intervention of doctors. I'm going this Friday for a cardiac catheterization, for Christ's sake,
Wow.
and covet everybody's prayers for that.
Yeah.
But all along the way with this, I have been able to translate uh, healing energy into reality for other people. I've been able to transmute that to them and heal other people, and couldn't do a darn thing for myself. And there's this concept of the wounded healer that most people are familiar with in the realm of the paranormal and the psychic realm. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, who knows? But I do know that I have relied on spiritual healing techniques to keep me going through situations where doctors couldn't help, didn't help, and situations that I knew were out of control of the physical realm, that I had to have that spiritual intervention. And that's what's kept me going. And I don't say this as a boast or a brag or in a lighthearted way, but I've outlived some of my doctors, and it's because of the reliance on that spiritual healing and holding on to the other side. And that's where the real power comes. And people get all kinds of confused with healing. They think, well, if I do spiritual healing, then I show a lack of faith if I go to my doctor. No, you don't. When you use healing, use a shotgun method,
Yeah.
not a rifle. Use a shotgun. Shoot a scatter at everything and see what hits, see what works. Use spiritual healing, use the doctors, use yoga, use this, use that, run, lift weights, swim, whatever you can do to holistically approach the concept of health and find out what works for you. Over the years, I've done things that have kept me going that if other people tried them, probably would have killed them, quite literally. So you have to find out also what works for you. Not everything works for everyone the exact same way. We do know that sending out this healing energy that we're talking about does seem to work for everyone. If we can do that consistently and focused and have them be receptive to it. And that brings up another facet of healing, I think, is that the person receiving healing has to have that mindset that, what if? Okay, hey, these people are going to send me energy. They're going to pray for me. What if it works? What if it helps even a little bit? What if I feel even a little bit better? What if that's possible? Okay, I'm open to that. I'm receptive to that. we can shut things off. We can have someone come up to us physically and say, hey, you're attempting to do this thing. If you would do this and do that, I don't want to hear that. I know what I'm doing here. And we can block the help that we need. We can do that spiritually as well. Oh, well, I don't believe in this group, or I don't believe in the way they're approaching healing, or I don't believe in the way they're approaching this, or their philosophy, or their religious tradition, or whatever. And then we block that healing. We block that energy from coming in. So, some of it has to be on the part of the person receiving the healing as well.
Yeah, I totally am with you. The wounded healer thing too, I think really fits myself as well. And, I can give and I can heal these people, I can help these people. And then there's some things where I'm like, well, why can't I just do this myself? And for me, what it was is that I needed to be open to receiving love from other people. And that's why I couldn't do it for myself, because it was like a lesson my soul was trying to teach me. It was like, let other people love you enough to heal you. And I was like, okay. I mean, that's terrifying, but I guess I'll try it. And then I did, and it was like, relief. I'm like, okay, so this is, I think, like, maybe a piece of it for some people is that they're supposed to specifically receive it from someone else.
I think so, and I think also that we do have to acknowledge the negative energy, the negative aspect of things out there.
Yeah.
Because if you've got people that are down on you and sending you negative thoughts, sending you negative energy, or saying negative things about you, that builds up a momentum and an energy just like positivity does. And that can affect a person. And so I think that's why it's important that we cleanse our environments, we cleanse our auras, we cleanse our minds, our thoughts, however we can, and to whatever degree that we can, and realize that, I was astonished when I wrote, I've written 2 books now, published 2 books, and working on a 3rd. And I was rather astonished at the little snipping comments that people would make, about the book. Now, here are books that have won multiple awards each. They've hit multi-category bestsellers several times each. They've got people like Uri Geller giving me positive blurbs and responses. They've got a ton of nice 5-star reviews and things like that. And then one person will sneak in some little snippy, snide little dig, that it's just, they just love going after people and digging, and that's what they do. That's all they do. I had this one guy that left just a scathing review on one of my books and said, I haven't read the book, but it just doesn't smell right. And then he writes a scathing review. So I went to Amazon, I had it taken down. I said, how can you write a book review if you have not read the book and you admit you have not read the book, but then you write this scathing review about the book? And I looked the guy up that left, and Amazon took it down.
Good.
And I looked up the guy that left the review, and that was his thing. Every review that he did on every book was some scathing, this is a piece of crap and the author is a piece of crap. And it's like, there are people in the world that get off on doing that,
Yeah. Can you imagine
so that builds up negativity.
how miserable you have to be that person?
Yeah.
Like, poor.
But I think they enjoy it. I think they go through life enjoying that. They make them somehow feel superior or better or more educated or more knowledgeable, supposedly, than the person they're going after. And of course, in our field, everybody and their dog's an expert. And if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So, another way that, besides cleansing everything with spiritual tools and techniques, another thing you do is you just have to learn, hey, there are people out there that are like that. They're going to come after you. You just got to blow it off, not let it get to you. And anytime I start letting petty criticism get to me, I just think, go on YouTube, look at your favorite mega famous mega star band, and they've got negative reviews.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, if the biggest, best people on the planet get these little nagging, stupid, ignorant reviews, don't let it get to you. Water off a duck's back, because there's just people out there that are going to do that.
Absolutely.
And it's unreal. So we have to take that into account too, I think, and keep ourselves as positive as we can. And, that's why people are always saying, hey, watch who you pal around with, and watch your environments, and watch where you're at and the energies that are around you, because they will at some point or the other affect you.
Yeah. it's really, really important. They say you're a collection of what, like the 5 closest people to you. So choose your influences wisely, right?
Use your influences wisely.
For some of us, that is people like, in like celebrities or hosts of shows or whatever that we spend a lot of time with too. So you want to be careful about that as well.
Exactly.
Do you feel like also some of the negative energy in your environment or maybe in your health or something has come from spiritual attack specifically, perhaps because you do so much spiritual work and good that there are energies that would like to stop you?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely think so. And when I was younger, I didn't put that much stock in it. And now that I'm older and I have the experience that I have, I've come to think about that a lot recently. And I thought, if you look at just the physical world and the way it operates, there are forces out there that want to promote negativity and evil. We have criminals, and we have psychotic people, and we have serial killers, and we have this, that, and the other. And so we have to face those realities in the physical world. And you say, well, if you extrapolate things, it can't all be roses and light in the spiritual world either. No. And so there have to be some types of these negative energies that don't want these positive messages out there. And if you look at the resistance, for example, with our federal government, which has now admitted, okay, UFOs are real, they're physical objects, and just about everybody in the government and military and science and everything has come out now and all but said they're ETs. They've said it as clearly as they can say it without saying it, by saying, folks, we don't have this technology. This isn't ours. We're not capable of this. Hello. Then that only leaves another out there. So, but you look at that, and even though they have acknowledged that, there is still this huge, gigantic, vast resistance in government and other circles, political circles, to come forth with full disclosure and to tell us what's going on. Now, look, somebody's got to know. In the deep, dark bowels of this stuff, somebody has to know after all these years what's going on. And the resistance to that. And there have been people that have said, Harry Reid talked a lot before he died about UFOs and about the political structure and what went on. And other people that are in the know and in that arena have talked about that. And they said, one of the things is, I ain't getting my hands dirty with that stuff because of the stigma attached to UFOs. Over the years before the government finally admitted, yeah, they're real, it was the province of kooks and weirdos and conspiracy theorists. So for a long time, people didn't want to sully their hands with that. And then the other thing is, lots of people in the know have come out and said, look, there are people in the government that are like super Christian, right-wing conservative thing. And it's like, these are demonic. We don't get involved with that. That's not godly. That's not holy, whatever. So the religious stigma holds them back from that. So we have all this resistance to something that's unknown and that is a fact, but we still see all this resistance to that. And you can't help but think that a little bit of that has to be provoked from the other side, from energies that don't want us to know what's going on, don't want us to have the reality of what's happening. And, when people say, well, John, look, they're doing everything they can, all this and all that, that's BS. Yeah. For one thing, the statement has been made recently by the government and by the military and they tried to slip this out as something that we'd swallow and believe, that we just don't have the technology to understand this yet. Well, my God, I watched a documentary over a decade ago. And in this documentary, one of our former CIA chiefs, one of the former heads of the CIA, said, and this was during the SR-71 Blackbird era, and the Blackbird flew in subspace at speeds that nothing could catch, no rocket, no missile, no plane. And he said, during the Blackbird era, he said, if you put 2 golf balls side by side on a putting green a foot apart, and the SR-71 flew over in subspace at speed and took a photograph, when you developed the film, you could read which golf ball was a Titleist and which one was a McGregor, clearly. And he said, that's decades old technology. Imagine what we can do now. Yeah. So, from that admission alone, you know that we've got the technology to capture these things on film. And following all the UFO discussion among reliable people, and there's a lot of unreliable people in ufology, but in following the discussion of reliable people, someone has made the statement that he has, and this is someone that's pretty well vetted and pretty well acknowledged as reliable and knowledgeable and a real deal. And he's made the statement that he has within the community someone reliable that, of course, he won't name, they won't come forward and won't say anything, but he said they've told him, we have 4K high-res photos of these things 50 feet from our aircraft. So, you know, I do believe that we have that knowledge, that we have that capability, that it's there. Why they won't show it to us, I don't know. You know, the old saw is, well, it'll destroy religion. No, it won't, because the people that are on the fence are going to either stay in the church or leave the church regardless. They'll use that as a jumping point one way or the other. The true believers, if a UFO lands in their neighborhood close to a church, they're going to all run out there and circle hands around the craft and pray for Jesus to save the alien souls. You know, so not a lot's going to change there. I do find it interesting that the New York Post ran an article that said that NASA had commissioned, I believe, 24 clergy members to do a panel on how's it going to be, you know, if we publicly acknowledge that the aliens are here and they're real, what's the reaction of people going to be religiously? So I thought that was pretty interesting. But, you know, the bits and pieces, strides that we're making forward here with this are not anywhere close to enough, because, you know, we've drugged this out for decades and decades and decades. And, you know, we have the technology, we have the public saying, get with it already, you know, tell us what you know, bring it forward. And what do? Well, we have the government report, which dangled a carrot in front of us. There were a few gems in it, but it basically dangled a carrot. Yeah. And now we're forming a committee to study it more. Now, when the government forms a committee, this is what they do. They form a committee to study forming a committee, to think about a committee, yes, that we might form a committee to do something about this possibly.
And then they'll like spend money. They'll be like, go study squirrels and their response to like strawberries, because that somehow relates to our UFO committee or something.
Yeah,
like, what are
exactly
you doing?
Right. Exactly right. And for people that think that Lindsay's being frivolous or flippant or whatever, they've committed tons of money to, like,
for last year.
Do fish get drunk faster on gin or whiskey? You know, stuff like that. True. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. So again, we have to push this thing forward, and it's up to us to do it. I don't think it's going to come from the military or from the government. I think it's going to come from us when we finally say, hey, enough, and we put enough pressure on to really get this done. On one of the podcasts that I'm interviewed on periodically, some of that group gets together and they form, they have this big phone home, and they've done that 3 times now. And they bring together famous ufologists and people from the military and people from the government from all over the world. And they have these discussions on ufology and what it's going to take to advance this, what it's going to take to bring disclosure about. And on the latest one, they got a senator, and he came on and was absolutely bluntly honest. And that was really refreshing. And one of the things that he had to say was, look, the government basically made a mistake even by issuing this little report. It's kind of like opened up a chink in the armor. And if we don't take that and push that open and force this to disclosure now, they're going to repair that chink, close that door, and that's going to be it probably for decades to come. So, and this is a senator saying this. And it's up to us, as it always has been, to make our will known and to put enough pressure on people to get something done, to bring something about. And we're just going to have to keep pushing this harder and harder and harder. I think this year, 2022, is going to be the year that tells it for us as to what we accomplished with true disclosure or not. And, you know, the people speculate on why disclosure hasn't happened. Well, there's theories that the government has pacts with aliens. There's theories that the government has no clue what's going on, can't control or contain or help anything, that The aliens are basically in charge doing what they want to, which kind of seems to be the case. Whatever the truth is, let's get rid of the people that claim to have met the aliens and, oh, they're going to come forth and disclose themselves, and it's a bunch of ignorant BS. And then people that might be on the fence and might want to seriously get involved with this, see that kind of junk and they go, I'm not getting involved with these nutcases. So, let's get past all of that. Let's get down to the real nitty gritty. Let's get in contact with people that can do something, and let's get this out in the open, figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I would love to have everything they have on everything they've ever
on
done
the table. Yeah,
out on the table.
I would absolutely love that. And people are like, well, people are going to be too afraid or this and that. Look, we've lived through the threat of nuclear war, Cold War with Russia, Russia's return to superpower status, all these viruses in the world, everything else. I think we can handle the truth about UFOs.
Yeah, we've been through enough.
Yeah. And if it hasn't occurred by now, I think it has to be because there's some cabal and power that wants to contain that for whatever reason.
Well,
and that's what we need to bust open and figure out and find out. And one of the things, I can't remember if we discussed this on our last interview or not, about when I went to Roswell to the UFO museum.
No, I actually wanted to ask you and hear about that, but I just want to add that I think the main reason why we wouldn't hear about something like this, there is a cabal and there is an organizing factor that would like to keep it from us, and I think it's because it undermines faith in government, and government is supposed to be our daddy, our grandpa, our God. Yeah. And so if we don't have faith in them that they can handle anything and take care of us, then things start to crumble on every level. And I really think that's almost all there is to it. Maybe there's also some pacts and agreements and other things going on. There's always got to be various levels.
But what you say is so valid, because people get in power and they want to keep that power and they want to extend that power, and they don't want to lose that power and they don't want to lose that money.
And that's
another thing that the senator, the congressman, that's another thing that he was saying, was that he said, look, he said, when I got started in politics, he said, I met this guy who was a stereotypical good old Southern boy that had a glass of bourbon in one hand and a big thick cigar in the other. And he said, boy, he said, I'm going to tell you something about how all this works. He said, people are going to come and go, senators are going to come and go, congressmen are going to come and go, but I'm going to be here forever. And I call the shots. And he said, you know what? That guy's still there. And he was right. And another thing this guy said, the senator, another thing he said was that, the senator or congressman, I don't remember which, but he was one of the two. Another thing he said was that if there's so much money involved with all of this, that if you start pushing for revelations that affect someone's pocketbook, he said that's when you commit suicide by 2 in the back of the head.
Yes, exactly.
So he said that is real. That is a real threat. That is out there. So we have all these things to contend with when we're dealing with this. And then going back to the Roswell UFO Museum, what ties in with that is just a civilian confirmation of that fact. I did there was a thing called Alien Encounter 98 back in 1998. And I went there to give psychic readings. And there were a number of lecturers there. Stanton Friedman was there when he was still alive. I got to see him lecture in person. That was awesome. And so one morning before everything started, I had some time and I said, man, I got to go to the Roswell UFO Museum. You can't come here and not do that. So I went and got there early and was peeking through the windows and the door and was standing outside on the sidewalk waiting for it to open. And there wasn't hardly any foot traffic there. It was early in the morning. And so this lady walks down the sidewalk and she nods at me and I nod at her and we exchanged pleasantries. And she goes, you waiting for the museum to open? And I said, yeah. She said, your first time here? I said, yeah. I said, as a matter of fact, it is. And I said, oddly enough, I said, I was born in New Mexico, but I've never lived here and I've never been to Roswell. This is my first time here and my first time to the museum. She goes, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I said, well, I'm a psychic and I'm here at Alien Encounter 98 giving readings. And she looked at me a minute and she goes, oh, well, then you'll believe what I'm going to tell you. You'll understand what I'm going to tell you. I said, okay, now you got my attention. So this lady tells me that her and her brother, when they were kids, they were outside playing and they saw the craft come over and crash. And
like
they said
the Roswell crash.
they saw the Roswell crash. And they said, we knew it was not a plane, not a weather balloon, not a helicopter, not a blimp. It was a UFO. We saw it clearly. And from the way it went through the air, we knew that it was in trouble. And we saw it go off over the way, and we saw it crash, saw the evidence of the crash. And I was just gobsmacked. I was like, holy cow, to meet a firsthand witness and talk to them. And I was just like, my God. And I said, let me ask you this. Why aren't more people like you coming forward and telling your story? And she said, when this happened, and this has been confirmed from many other sources, not just this woman, but she said, when this happened, there were people that were from the military, from the government. We presumed some were from the military and some were from the government, and some we didn't know who they were. And basically the message delivered to everyone was, if you talk about this and bring this forward and make a big deal out of this, your bones are going to be found out in the desert.
You're going to suddenly feel very suicidal.
Yes. And she said, for the brave among us that were like, bring it on, bitch, you might not care about yourself, but what about your wife and kids? And so that was an effective way to shut you up with the threats. And all of a sudden, she snaps her head left and right, looks up and down the street like this and says, I've said too much. I've got to go. Sorry, nice meeting you. And walks off at a brisk pace down the sidewalk. All those years later, that fear was still there that had been instilled all those years earlier. So a lot of that has to do with, well, why don't more witnesses come forward and so on and so forth? That's a lot of it. And then, right now, if you look at ufology and if you're honest, it's stuck in a rut and has been for a long time. It's like I tell people, we just moved, so I have a new asthma and allergy doctor, and I went to him today for the first time. And he asked me what I did, and I was like, oh, Jesus, here we go. So I told him, and, because psychics have such a stigma, because there's so many frauds and phonies out there. Yeah. So I told him, he was real receptive to it, and we got to talking about things, and he was like, have you driven through the forest here at night yet? I was like, well, no. And he says, there's a lot of strange things going on out there. He said, we were driving through and coming through at night, and there were these glowing orbs out there and moving around in ways that nothing on this planet moves like. And we were like, okay, something's going on out here. So that was real interesting. But the point of all that is ufology's in a rut. You go to the same conferences, you see the same people over and over, they have nothing new. And you see a TV special and it says new, and it's on UFOs. You're like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And you turn it on and it's either Rendlesham Forest or Roswell again. Yeah. And it's like, my God, my head's going to friggin' explode. And what I don't understand, there are things happening like out here in the forest all the time. People are seeing UFOs daily all over the world. There are real-time things happening right now. Where are the film crews and the interest? Somebody's got the bucks, somebody's got the know-how, somebody's got the interest to go out and say, okay, where's this stuff happening? We're going out there, we're going to film it in real time. We're not going to edit it. We're going to throw it up on YouTube or on TV or on Tubi or wherever, Netflix, wherever, whoever will take this. Look, we got the real deal. Why isn't somebody doing that? It's occurring daily. Yeah. It's occurring all the time. And so why do we see rehashes of Rendlesham Forest and Roswell over and over and over and over and over again? What's going on there that, and I even asked one of the most famous ufologists there is. I sent an email. I said, hey, man, why not any fresh coverage, new things going on or anything? Never got a response. And, about the most current thing I can think of going on is Skinwalker Ranch on History Channel. And, they've, Brandon Fugel, I've communicated with him on Twitter. I believe he is doing what he's doing out of a genuine interest, not out of a need for any publicity or recognition or anything else. I believe he is absolutely genuine in what he's doing. And what is so frustrating to me than to see these things that are current and that are real, and that they're documenting things scientifically. They're proving things, they're catching them on camera. They've caught multiple UFOs several times. They've caught portals opening. They've caught temperature drops. They've caught all kinds of creatures and bizarre things. And what bugs me about people in the paranormal community is that they will go, well, there's no proof. They just got a TV show. They're just on there just for the money and they're just getting rich and famous. All they're doing, there ain't no proof. And I say, have you watched the show? No, I don't. There's no science there. Have you watched the show?
Do you know what science
No.
means?
Yeah, do you know what science means? I mean, you see this room full of people.
Data.
You've got this dedicated scientist there. You see this room full of people with all these scientific instruments to measure things scientifically. There's no science there. And it's like, man, come on. And I've had so many arguments with people over that. And, 9 times out of 10, again, one of the shows that I'm interviewed on periodically had Brandon Fugel on there. And I chimed in during the chat, and he thanked me because I said, for those of you that say there's no proof, they have tons of proof. Have you watched the shows? And he was like, John Russell, thank you. And that was one of the things he was saying. He said, my staunchest critics, when I asked him that question, have you seen any of the shows? Have you watched any of the shows? No. Well, then how are you qualified to make any judgment on this?
It's just like the guy who reviewed your book.
Exactly right.
Like, where are you
I haven't read
from?
this book, but it sucks. It's like...
Well, it's always the same exact response to everything that we question, is that same exact thing. It's like, oh, well, that's all faked. Well, some of it is, but some of it's not. Oh, well, that's been debunked. Has it been debunked, or are there just some questions people have about it, which is very different from debunking? It's
very
okay
different,
to have questions, but to pretend like that dismisses it entirely is insane.
Exactly.
And like you said,
and that's what I tell people all the time. I say, look, just because something can be faked doesn't mean that everything is fake.
Yeah.
You can fake anything that you want to. If someone was skillful enough, and there are people that are, because I just saw in 60 Minutes, if you saw the deep fake thing with Tom Cruise, with the guy that does Tom Cruise, and it's a deep fake. So there are people that are skillful enough, they could make you and me into an interview saying anything on the planet, But
Right.
that doesn't mean that the real interview with Lindsay and John doesn't exist,
Yeah.
So that's one thing. You have to be careful in your arguments. People get hidebound in their arguments, and they'll accept these goofy things like, there's so many fake things, or they'll hear someone that supposedly has some authority say that, well, there's no proof, or they didn't get anything, or they're not following real science or whatever, and they'll quote that, as being some authentic statement without ever bothering to do research on their own and find out if that's true or not.
Yeah, you have to use discernment. You have to look into it yourself. You have to see it yourself. But as a person who's experienced a lot of UFO activity my entire life, I also find most people don't care. They don't want to hear it. They don't care at all. And then the few people who do care, well, that's because they've also had their own experiences.
They've had the experience.
Right.
Yeah, they've had the experience. And I think that's true in a lot of things in the spiritual realm. Is I think because there have been so many phonies and frauds out there, people tend to dismiss it out of hand instead of saying, well, okay, I encountered 3 phonies. Maybe this person's the real deal. Let's see,
Right.
And then you've got people are still quoting Randy. Randy's dead, the amazing Randy, he's dead. His life mission was to destroy Uri Geller. I've met Uri Geller. Uri Geller is the real deal. And people are still quoting Randy. And Randy's mission was not a skeptic. Randy's mission was as a debunker. He wasn't skeptical. He was just like, it's all bullshit, and I'm going to prove it's all bullshit.
Yeah, that's not skeptical at all. People don't know that.
Yeah, that's not skeptical at all.
I'm skeptical. Skeptical just means that you question everything and you look for evidence before you
find out what proves and what doesn't. And I watched this program. I think it may have been on PBS. I can't remember, but I watched this program that the amazing Randy did. And in this program, he interviewed all these various psychics to, see if they had anything real or whatever. So this one guy, Randy said, I have this object, And I believe it was a little statue or something. I don't remember now. And I believe it was given to him by a friend from a foreign country, or he bought it in a foreign country or whatever. Anyways, he said, there's no way anybody would know what this is and what it means to me, and he gave it to me. So he gave this to the psychic, and the psychic says, this was given to you as a gift by a friend. It was bought in a foreign country or found in a foreign country, whatever the deal was. So this guy's hitting everything on the nail on the head, hitting everything as he's going. And Randy admits the guy is accurate. And the guy says, there's something about the friend that gave this to you. There's something around his neck. And he didn't say it was a clerical collar. He said, it reminds me of a clerical collar. There's like a collar, like something around his neck. Now that's what he said. He didn't say it was a clerical collar. He said, it reminds me of, he said, there's like a collar or something around his neck. And this is kind of like a trademark with him or something. So Randy says, wrong. So the guy had got like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 things right up to that point. And Randy admitted that he did. And then at this, Randy says wrong. Now, what the guy did, Randy's friend, he wore turtleneck sweaters a lot. So
yeah,
I see something like there's like this collar, and it reminds me maybe like a clerical collar or something, but there's something around his neck. The guy wore turtlenecks all the time. So Randy said, wrong. And then Randy proceeds to say, if he got that wrong, which he didn't, if he got that wrong, everything's wrong.
That's crazy.
So I was on this radio show regularly when I was living up in New York. And this guy that interviewed me once a month, had me on once a month, called me and said, hey, John, guess who I got as a guest coming up? I said, who? He said, Randy. I said, oh my God. He said, is there anything you want me to ask him? I said, yeah, ask him about the psychic and the turtleneck and all this. Ask him that. And then ask him this question that, you know, hey, I have this friend and he's a psychic or whatever. And he says that everybody on this planet, if they are honest, has had at least one experience in their life they can't explain by rational means. And what is yours? So he said, okay. And he said, here's the show date. And I said, oh my God, I can't tune in. I'm busy. Then I won't be able to hear the show. But he followed up with me and told me what happened. So he had Randy on. So we asked Randy about the guy. He said, hey, look, you know, the guy was accurate through all of these things. You admitted he got all these things right. And then he hits this and you call it wrong and you call everything wrong. And Randy says, that's our agreement. That was the agreement we had. I call the shots. That's the determination I made. End of story. I said, well, you know, how fair is that, right?
Sounds exactly like Snopes
now,
to me.
If I'm a skeptic and some guy is hitting everything right on this thing that I've given him that he doesn't know from a hill of beans, I'm going to perk up and go, something's happening here, you know, but apparently not Randy. And then after that, he said, well, okay. He said, well, what about you? Everybody has had at least one experience in their life that they can't account for if they're honest. And Randy goes, nope, next question. And that was it.
So he's just a liar.
You have these people go into this thing with the mindset that it's all BS and that they're going to prove it's all BS. And if they see the real deal, somehow it's BS, you know? And so that's not a true skeptic. That's not a true researcher. That's not a true investigator. If somebody comes to me and says, I can make a booger fly out my nose in a continuous stream and stick on the wall, and then I can inhale in and lift myself up the wall with that, I'm going to say, let's see it. I'm going to bring the camera. Let's do it.
Right.
You know? And if you can do it, man, I'm a believer. We got to do something with this gift, you know? And if you're an idiot or a psycho or you're self-deluded or you've got mental issues or whatever, then we discover that too. But at least be willing to evaluate it and evaluate it honestly without preconceived notions, you know? So
that's the best advice you can give anybody, right?
Yeah.
Is just consider things. You have nothing to lose by considering.
You have
things.
Nothing to lose. If the person can do it, holy cow, you know? And if they can't, they're self-deluded or they're a liar or they're a scammer or whatever, but you've found out.
And you're even allowed to say ahead of time, I doubt that. That's probably not true, but still,
absolutely,
let's see.
Absolutely.
Right.
And when I was young, I was a cavalier son of a gun, man. I was just full of vim and vigor and spit and fire and everything else, and had a great sense of humor. And when I was young, I loved skeptics. I absolutely loved them because I would blow their hair back. You know, I had one guy. I had made friends with this older couple, and I love them so much, and I miss them dearly. And they were instrumental in a lot of my psychic growth and spiritual growth. But the man was a skeptic, and so one time he said, "Okay," he said, "John, I want you to do a reading for me." And he goes, "This is something that I'm not going to tell you anything about, and I just want you to do this reading." So I did the reading, and his eyes got big, and he looked over at the lady he lived with, and he said, "You promised me you wouldn't tell him." And she goes, "I didn't tell him anything." And he looked at me and he said, "John," he said, "I know you, and I know you're a man of your word and you're a man of honor." And he said, "I'm going to ask you to tell me the truth now. Did she tell you about what I was going to ask?" Because the question he had in his mind, I was answering during the reading without him having even asked it. And I said, "No, she has not told me a word on my honor. She has not told me a single word." So he became a believer after that. And we had a lot of great sessions there at their home. And he had a son coming in that lived in California. This is back when I was living in Texas. So his son was coming in from California, and he said, "Dad," he said, "you just fallen for a cold reader, a scammer, some clever con artist." He said, "There's no such thing." He said, "Listen, you've got to meet this guy, and you've got to get a reading to evaluate for yourself." So they called me to come over one night while his son was there. And this is how the guy greeted me. He said, "I think that this is all bullshit. I think that you've scammed my dad, and this is all bullshit, and that you're just a con artist." And he said, "I think you're bullshit." And he said, I have several things in my life going on and questions in mind, but I'm not going to ask them. I'm not going to tell you what they are. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to sit here at the table with you. I'm going to get up." And he got up and he walked across into the kitchen, stood there, leaned against the counter with his arms folded, said, "I'm going to stand over here, and I'm not going to give you any feedback, and you tell me what you got." And I looked at him and I said, "You're the kind of client I love." And that blew his hair back. So I began to tell him these things. And as I did, his arms fell and his posture drooped and his eyes bugged out. And I got through with the reading. I said, "Okay, now you be honest with me." And he stood there for a little bit and shook his head, and he looked at me and he said, "I don't know how the hell you've done what you've done here tonight." But he said, "Not only did you answer the questions that I had in my head," he said, "you answered issues going on in my life that my family doesn't even know about yet." And I was like, so that made a believer out of him. You know, and back in the old days, like I said, I used to enjoy that. And I'm 68 and I'm old and I'm tired, and I don't have time for that anymore. You know, if you're honest and you're skeptical, but you're honest, and you're really wanting to know, and you're really wanting to learn, really wanting to find out, I'll make time for you. But if you're an asshole, I ain't got no time for you no more. You know,
Right.
I'm old and wore out, and that's it.
Someone else can deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the kind of, I can see why you would love that, you know, because it gives you that confirmation too. Like, oh, I don't even need you to. I remember when I was, you know, tarot reading at first, I was like, well, I want your feedback. Every card, I want to know, like, do you think this is on the right track? Now I'm like, you don't have to say anything. You can be silent this whole time. It's just as good as if you tell me things. It doesesn't matter at all. Like, do what you want.
That's it.
Because at some point,
you gain that experience, and you know when you're right, and you know when you're hitting. And but yeah, when people start out, they do need that feedback. That's how you grow. That's how you develop. You know, it's like a piano teacher. You know, did I hit those notes right? Was my tempo right? Was my phrasing right? No, you need to change this a little bit, or do this a little bit, or whatever. So yeah, in the beginning you need that, but as you develop, like you say, you know when you're hitting, and you know when people won't acknowledge that you're right. And that's the funny thing. It's like you can tell them, you say, "Yes, I am." They're reluctant to acknowledge it. I remember I had these one set of friends, and I have this energy that I transmit through my hands, and it's so strong that some people have nearly passed out when I've done it, and all kinds of things. So they said, they invited this friend of theirs over, and they said, "You've got to experience this. You've got to feel this." So I had her sit down in a chair, and I put my hands on either side of her head, and I started transmitting this energy, and I could feel it, and I knew it was there. And they were like, "What are you feeling?" And she said, "Nothing, not a thing." So man, I ramp up the energy, and I'm like, you know, I'm zapping this energy into her. And she's still like, no, nothing. I saw. I know she's lying because my hands are turning red and starting to sweat. Okay. I said, I know. So I said, okay, well, whatever. So the next day, my friends tell me, they said, she nearly fell out of the chair. She nearly went unconscious. And I was like, why didn't you say anything? She was like, she said, you couldn't believe what I was feeling. She said it was the most intense radiation and heat, and this dizziness came over me, and I literally almost passed out and fell out of the chair. But I wasn't going to let him know I was feeling it. And I was like,
that's not rational.
So
Come on.
You have all these weird things when you deal with people doing this stuff that, it's like they have all these bizarre mechanisms going on, and it's like, it gets really frustrating. I remember one time I was reading for this lady, and I said, boy, there's a lot of disharmony in your home right now. And she said, no, there isn't. All my dishes are washed, my beds are made, my floors are swept, but boy, my husband's really been a bear lately.
Like, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Mind, she couldn't relate disharmony to disharmony. It was like disharmony to her meant the house was cluttered, It's like, so there's all kinds of bizarre.
I've had clients too where I'm like, well, it seems like you've had this huge trauma when you were a child. And they're like, oh, no, nothing. I've never had trauma when I was a child. I'm like, that's weird. It seems like there's a pretty big trauma here. Like, and it's, well, I mean,
well, the time I was kidnapped.
Yeah, it's something I'm like, well, yeah, that counts. That's big. That's pretty huge. They're like, oh, I just thought that was just normal. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, but I mean, that's how we all kind of are, right? We're like, well, no, it's not so bad. Other people have it worse. And it's like, well, okay, you're allowed to know that your trauma counts. Okay?
That it's traumatizing. Yeah, it was a traumatizing event. I remember this one guy I read for, and I said, is your son deceased? And he said, no. I said, man, is your son? I don't want to argue with you, but I'm getting this huge, vast gulf here between you and him, this distance that to me is like he's on the other side. No. All right. So I go on with the reading, and I said, are you sure your son is not deceased? Are you sure your son's not dead? Like maybe he lives somewhere else. You don't know that he's died or something? No. Okay. So I go on with the reading, and again, I ask him about his son, and nope. So we get to the end of the reading, and I'm like, okay, something's got to give here. And I said, let me ask you something. How's this reading been? As far as accuracy, insights, predictions, whatever that you think you can validate or what? Oh, he says, it's been amazing. It's just been astonishing. I said, well, is there anything lacking or missing that you wish? Yeah, I wish you'd have spent more time talking about my dead son.
Oh, he didn't know what it meant.
I was like, excuse me?
That's what I was trying to get.
And I couldn't even, I was so gobsmacked, I couldn't even question him or call him on it. And then I had to get off because I had another client I had to go to. So I just had to leave it hanging like that. And I was like, he denies it 4 or 5 times. And then says, well, I wish you would talk more about my dead son. I was like, so you get all kinds of strange things. You get all kinds of weird things. And you learn just you do what you can. And
yeah. It's really, and it's funny. I have a friend too who does a different type of reading, and she's saying, sometimes there's things that come through too where the person is just like, that doesn't make sense. I don't know why you're saying this to me. Like, it doesn't fit. I just don't understand. Mm-hmm. But then a month later, 2 months later, 4 months later, they're like, oh, that thing you said, like now I see it, I understand it. And so sometimes it's like from the future, right? And that's always interesting too to.
And people have to realize that no matter how good your gift is, you're not God.
Right.
You don't know everything. You don't have all the answers. You're not going to be able to make the cheating boyfriend come back, and you're not going to be able to guarantee them the job that they want. You're not going to be able to give them the lottery numbers and on and on and on. We have these gifts, and they're wonderful, marvelous, fantastic things. I've seen things over the years that blew my hair back when I saw them for clients. And I've had way over 1,000 physical paranormal experiences, but there's still so much that I don't know and yearn to know and wish I knew and wish I could help more and be more effective and so on and so forth. And that's part of the other side. It kind of seems to play peekaboo with us,
Yeah.
And we don't always get all the answers we want. We don't always, there's times that I would see a client's parents or friends or spouse's death coming, and the other side would lead me to tell them, hey, you better go spend time with your dad because he's fixing to cross over. and the other side knows who can take the message that way and who can't.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm like, get that feeling and that message, don't tell them this thing you just saw. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, I feel kind of weird now. Like,
right,
but
right.
I'm not going to tell them if I was told not to tell them.
There have been all these times that I have foretold people's deaths accurately and was led to tell people prepare for that or go spend time with them because they're going to cross over or whatever.
Yeah.
And then this other time I had this client that had been a client, I guess, maybe close to a decade, and lovely, delightful woman. And the last reading that we had, the other side told me to tell her over and over and over, do the things you love this month and do them repeatedly. Do the things that really bring you joy and happiness. If it's drinking wine, if it's going out to eat, if it's a movie, a book, whatever, the things you really love, do them repeatedly this month. And that was the message I got over and over and over and over. And a few months later, I got this call out of the blue, and it was her parents, and she had died. And they were calling me. They were finding numbers and things in her papers and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I was her psychic. I was her spiritual advisor. Well, we were just trying to wrap up loose ends, wondered who it was. Now, the other side knew these other people were going to die and told me to tell the people, hey, go spend time. They're going to die. They knew she was going to die, but all they would tell me is to tell her, do these things you love this month over and over and over again. So maybe that was a way of them preparing her for, not dying and going, gosh, I wish I'd have had that last piece of cake. She did have the last piece of cake. So
yeah,
who knows? We get.
Yeah, because why you don't want to spend the last month or two being like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Instead, you want, and if you had told her you're going to die, and if you knew that, you would have told her, and then that wouldn't have been the best way she could spend that time.
That wouldn't have been the best way to go out. Yeah. So who knows? We don't see as far down the road with these things as we'd like to. And, we do the best we can with what we got and strive to get better and better and strive to get better and better. Yeah. But, like I say, I've been doing this, I had my psychic abilities, my paranormal awakenings happen when I was 5, and I'm going to be 68 now. And I have more questions now than I have answers.
That just makes you trustworthy. If you didn't,
well, there you go.
Because these are the people who I can't stand, are the people who are like, I'm absolutely positive about all these things and I have no questions. Yeah. I'm like, I don't really trust you then.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly. The people that irk me are people that tell me I know exactly what it's like on the other side. No, you don't. We'll know when we get there, and we get these communications from the other side that are the best they can do and the best we can interpret. But we still don't know exactly what it's like over there, and we're not going to know till we get there. I love this this old minister that was this friend of mine, and he used to say, you know what? Regardless of what your spiritual belief is, or what church you go to, or what book you read, or anything else, he said, we're all going to be so shocked when we get there, because it's not going to be anything like we think it is. And I think that's the guy that probably had the handle on it. Yes. We just don't know. And there are so many things that we wish would work consistently or be consistent or whatever, and they're not. And that's one of the frustrations. And in one of my books I write and I say, well, maybe some of this is to teach us that lesson of faith. And that's what faith is like, I don't understand it completely. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the puzzle pieces, but I'm walking on anyways. And I'm doing what I can anyways. And maybe that's part of what faith is. I don't know. But it can get very frustrating. In my second book, I write about the fact that in spite of all these paranormal experiences, and in spite of all the accurate predictions I've made and all the things I've done for people and all the experiences I had, I lost faith totally and completely. I was like, one person's healed, the next person dies. One person does this thing and it works, and the next person does this, and they're just afloat in a sea of misery. And I went out, and one winter night, I drove out on this deserted road there in Texas, and I looked up at this black night sky full of stars, and I shook my fist at God and cursed him, and I said, damn it, Dale, give me an answer, give me a sign, give me something. And there was nothing. And I said, I thought so. And I drove back home, and I washed my hands of all of it. And the other side didn't let me wash my hands of all of it. And that's why I'm still here. And one of the things that happened shortly after that, I was laying in bed at night, And I woke up absolutely wide awake, and I knew I was wide awake. It was not sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
I could look around the room. I could see everything in the room coming in from the street lights outside. I had clear vision there, but I couldn't move my body. I could move my eyes. I could look around, but I couldn't move my body. And all of a sudden, and I was laying on my right side, and from behind me, this hand reaches up and grabs my shoulder and caresses it and gives it this gentle squeeze and holds it for a little bit and then lets go. And the second it let go, my paralysis was gone. I jumped up and looked, and of course, there's nobody in the flesh there. And that's what reintegrated everything spiritual back into my life. And it was kind of like they were saying, we get it, John. We understand, we're sorry, but hang in there, come back. And that's what did it. That's what, re-involved me with everything. And kind of gave me that message that, okay, I don't get to understand it all, but I get to understand some of it. And I get to do some good with that little bit that I can understand. And that's what I'm going to do. So that's what brought me back.
I love that so much. I mean, I think that that's the energy that you want to bring and that is trustworthy, for people to connect with. It's just that feeling of like, I don't pretend to be God, I don't pretend to know everything, and I don't pretend to even have ultimate faith in everything, but I have enough faith and trust in my sources, my guides, whatever it is, that I'm going to do what I can, and here's what I can offer you.
And the other side has never let me down in the clutch, I have to say that, and everything that they have given me has proven to be accurate, to be honest, to be real, to be trustworthy. And so that's, but going back to our conversation earlier, I do believe that there is a spiritual battle there. I believe that we battle against forces of darkness of some type that don't necessarily want this information out there and don't want this help out there and don't want things to be better. I remember there was when we lived in New York, my wife had a friend that he was a little bit of a psychic. He had a little bit of a psychic gift. And we would bounce things off of each other. And one of the things that we would do is when we were together all out in public, and he was blind. When we were all out in public, one of the things we would do was if he sensed something, he would ask me, did you feel something just now? And if so, what? And I'd do vice versa with him. And by not revealing what it was and getting confirmation from the other, then we would validate that, okay, that's what was really going on. So we had been all out to eat. And we're walking across, waiting to walk across a crosswalk there in New York, in Manhattan, and waiting at the light. And all of a sudden, this entity, this spirit energy, blew past us, so close to us, and with such ferocity that our clothes literally rippled.
Wow.
And I looked at him and he turned his head toward me and he said, did you feel that? And I said, yes, did you? And of course my wife did as well. And he said, what was it? And I said, you go first. And he said, it was something malevolent on the way somewhere to do something destructive. And I said, that's exactly what I picked up. And the funny thing was with that energy, it was almost like a retribution type thing, not I'm just going to go fuck shit up for fun. It didn't feel that way. It was almost like a retribution thing, like somebody's got something coming and I'm the one going to deliver it. I'm enjoying this. And that was kind of the energy that we felt and got from it. But the presence was so powerful and so strong that it made us realize, man, if this thing was coming our way, whoa, what do you do? How do you get out of the way? So we have to acknowledge that there are these powerful forces out there. And I think you can placate some of these forces. I think you can reason with some of these forces. I think some of them are to be avoided and not messed with. And you try your best not to get on the wrong side of these things. And talking about placating things, I remember one time I saw on TV this documentary, and it wasn't a paranormal documentary. It was like a science documentary or something. And this volcano had erupted, and his home was in the path of this volcano. It's like out in the Tules here, right in this village, and he has his home out in the middle of nowhere, and the lava flows coming toward his home. They're telling him he has to evacuate. And he said, no Pele will honor me. if I take these bottles of alcohol and place them on the corners of my property as an offering to Pele, she will honor that and will spare my home. And of course, everybody's like, oh, you superstitious idiot. So here comes the lava flow, this huge river of lava toward his home. Hits the front of his property where the bottles of liquor are, splits in two, goes down the side of his property to the back of his property, rejoins, and keeps flowing that way, leaving his home and his property intact.
Wow.
The scientists are going, we have no clue. We have no explanation. And finally, it did break through, and they made him evacuate, and it did break through. And he said, if I was still here and could have offered more liquor to Pele, my home would have been spared. Wow. And one of the things I have done over the years, one of the things I have learned over the years is to make offerings of gin to spirits for various things. They seem to be very fond of gin. I don't know why, but they love gin. And I have made successful offerings to spirits of gin and seen them react to that and do things for me or protect me from harm or whatever. So there are things out there that you can placate. And it's like, look, if you go to your wife and you say, do this for me, do that for me, or I need this, or I need that. After a while, she's going to say, hey, bud, do what you said, Just so on the other side, if you're constantly demanding, constantly needing, never giving anything back, no offering, no sacrifice of any type, they're going, well, the heck with you, why should I? But if you're going to say, hey, take this energy that's in this and enjoy this, and then can you please do such and such and such for me, you're going to get some results. And what I like to do periodically is communicate to the other side with leaving offerings out with no request, no nothing, just, hey, enjoy this candlelight, enjoy this booze, enjoy this music,
I love that.
This is for you, just like you bring a rose to your wife, say, honey, this is for you.
Yeah.
Do the same to the other side and you'll get a lot more response back there and a lot more respect back from the other side.
I love that because this is why I call them allies, because you're their ally too. And
That's true.
Right.
That's
so
true.
What are you giving back and what are they getting out of it? And I think this starts to some people sound like magic or like demon worship or something, but I always go back to, I would never interact with a demon. So It's not demon worship. And also worship, when you break it down and you go back to its roots, really goes to the phrase of being a worthy ship. And it really just has to do with respecting and saying, like, this is a worthy ship. I appreciate it. I love it. I honor it. And that's it. You're not I'm below the ship and the ship is above me. You're like, you could be equals even, but you still give it its honor and its dues. And I think this is the attitude.
And we do have to give this respect to the other side because there are some very strong, very powerful entities over there that could just, done with you.
Yeah.
And we do have to give them that respect and acknowledge that, I hate when these quote unquote ghost hunters, paranormal researchers, quote unquote, go in on these shows and the first thing they do is curse the spirits and yell at the spirits and challenge the spirits.
Yeah.
What an idiotic, stupid thing to do.
How rude.
And then how rude. And then a lot of them scream and run like little girls if something manifests. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you asked for it. That's what you're there for. Why are you running? So there's a lot of this stuff that I've talked with people that were behind the scenes as either on-air talent or in production in these shows and got fed up with it and left because they were asked to do ridiculous things. One of the on-air talents on one of the big prominent shows told me that they were repeatedly asked, can you whip up some tears here? Or can you scream and run out of the room? Or will you do this or that? And some of the people involved in production behind the scenes have called out these people on air for some of the egregious things they've done, the lies and the deceits and the stuff they made up and the way they've dishonored people whose businesses or homes they went into to investigate. So, unfortunately, the public doesn't understand that when you're watching these shows, you're watching a show for entertainment.
Yeah.
You're watching something that's meant to plant your butt in the seat and get advertising revenue. And that's all it is. It's not factual about the other side. It's not truthful about the other side. Some of these shows, every single show, demon this, demon that, malicious energy this, malicious entity that. That's not the case with the paranormal realm. We're not saying it's all love and light out there, but my entire life has been guided by spirits that have literally saved my life many times, protected me from physical harm, protected me from spiritual harm, protected me from harm with my health and other things. And it's been way more of a love and light ride than it has been a negative thing.
Yeah, I love pointing that out because it is scary when you start to talk about the darker energies and their intentions and what they can do, and then people get freaked out, and these shows just exacerbate that. But I'm with you; it's way more light and love and good than there is bad.
And you have to realize that if there is this corollary, if there is this equivalency there, then these light energies have to have as much or more power than the darkness does. Absolutely. And that's where you want to align yourself. And I think people like us, then we get into the mix of this after years and years and years of it. And we realize, okay, as a light worker, we're nonetheless a warrior, and warriors do battle. You know, we don't sit around, eat bonbons and watch TV. It's a fight. It's a struggle. It's a battle. And, you battle against sickness and illness and disease and ignorance and crime and evil and maliciousness and all these things. And you realize what a struggle the spiritual realm actually is. And it's not for the faint of heart, I tell you that.
That's what I tell people. They're like, I want to have experiences like this, and I want to do this. And I'm like, cool, but just know what you're asking for, because it's not just, bonbons and fun.
Oh, I've had people that are like, I want to experience that. And I'm like,
I don't think you do.
I don't think you do. And I've had people that I tell people, I'm a magnet for the paranormal, always have been. You hang around me, you're going to have experiences. And some of those people have stopped being my friends because of that, because the intensity of the experience, they couldn't handle it. I've had friends of mine that I scared so badly they ran out of the house.
Wow.
Demonstrating physical things that I could do, PK, psychic things, whatever that I could do, that I could manifest reliably, scared them so bad they ran out of the house, literally. So it's like, you do have to be careful what you ask for in this, because there are entities on the other side that are, okay, hey, how you doing? I'm here, And I remember this one lady called me and she said, oh my God, she said, you got to help me. You got to help me. You got to help me. She said, I was watching Sylvia Brown, and she said, if you want a ghost, ask for a ghost. And she said, that sounds like fun. So I asked for a ghost and I got one. And she said, it scared me to death and it wouldn't go away. And I moved to get away from it. And now where I live, I guess it's angry because I moved, and it sets all the car alarms off up and down the street. And the neighbors called the police because they said this never happened before she moved in, so she's got to be doing it. And she said the police came out and they were talking to me standing on my front steps, and all the car alarms up and down the street went off, and they looked at each other and went, okay, don't know what the hell that is, but it's not her, see you. And she said, so what do I do? I said, well, number one, you wanted something, you asked for it, you got it.
Yep.
I said, and now this spirit, this entity, which may not even have ever been human, which may be a nature spirit, may be something else, is like, hey, cool, I'm here, I'm home with you. Now you're scared to death of me, you don't want me. I'm trying to interact with you. I'm trying to show you I'm here, you asked for me, you don't want me, and now you move? I'm going with you, and I'm pissed. I'm going to set these car alarms off. Like, hey, what's the deal? And I said, okay, that's what's happened. Here's what you do. You talk to the spirit and you say, okay, listen, I'm sorry. I disrespected you. I asked for you, you came, and then I rejected you. So listen, I'm a little scared of you. I'm a little leery of this, and I got to get my footing here. So don't scare me. Don't interact with me quite as strongly. But you're welcome in my home. You're welcome here. I appreciate you. Protect me and guide me and watch over me. And if I have to go out and you're not coming with me, stay here and guard the home. Keep the home safe. I said, do that. And then holler back at me in a few weeks, months. We'll see what's going on. So she did that. Everything settled down. Everything was fine. She made peace with the spirit. Spirit made peace with her. But, the point is, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. Yeah. And then when you do, if you do want that experience, it can be very dramatic. It can be very heavy. It's like, for me, I was scared one time in my entire life, and I've never been scared since of anything that's happened. But for most people, it's very unnerving. It can be very frightening. And it's like, I sit here in our home. And like right over here on my desk where I work, I was in the living room the other day taking a break, eating lunch, whatever, and I hear this noise, and I come back in my office, and my tarot cards and a pad I make notes on had been moved several inches. And for me, that's de rigueur. That's, oh, hey guys, yeah, I see, appreciate you being here. Somebody else is like, oh my God, I got to get out of this house,
Yeah.
you know. So what you have to understand is that when the other side communicates with us, it communicates the only way it can. Aromas, noises, moving things, you know, whatever. And that's, you know, and of course there are full-bodied apparitions. I've had those. There are all kinds of other physical manifestations that occur literally physically. But for the most part, you'll get aromas, you'll get sounds, you'll get things moved, doors opening and closing by themselves, things like that. And that's the easiest way, apparently, for them to communicate. And what they're doing is just saying, hey, I'm here. I want you to know I'm here. And if it's a case of a loved one or whatever, I'm looking after you. I'm letting you know I'm here. I'm sending you love, whatever the case may be. So, you know, that's what people need to realize when they get involved with this and begin to ask for this. It is a very real realm, and you need to go into it with your eyes open. You need to go into it with an honest heart and with honest intentions. And if you're easily freaked out, don't do it. Don't go there. You know, it's just like I've used the Ouija board since I was 15 years old, still do. Never had a demon or a problem or a whatever, this, that, and the other, no negative energies. But you mentioned the Ouija board and people, oh my God, oh my God, oh my. Well, if things like that frighten you, don't use that tool or technique.
Well, and also know how to, because I tell the story of my
And know
first
how
time
to, yeah.
using tarot, and I invited in a random thing, and it turned out to be a really powerful dark entity, you know. But now I still do tarot. I just do it the right way, and with, you know, positive entities and energies,
Right.
and not that negative thing. But for a while, I thought tarot was evil because of that. It took me a
Right,
while to
right.
understand it was just my fault for
Yeah.
doing it, you know,
And I
inappropriately.
think too, we have to be very careful who and what we interpret as evil or malicious, because a very strong personality from the other side, or a very strong nature spirit who is not human, doesn't think as we do, doesn't feel as we do for the most part, doesn't act as we do, may come through. And they may not be mean or malicious or malevolent, but their energy may just be so strong and unfamiliar that we're like, oh my God, what? You know, and they mean us no harm. There's no maliciousness there, but you know, the literature is full of examples of, like Cocopelli, for example, the trickster, you know, Native American, and other mythologies also have this concept of the trickster, the joke player, or whatever, you know, gnomes, fairies, trolls, even among those, that's acknowledged there. And so there may be those with this kind of little, you know, watch me get this guy, you know, and they may not mean anything malicious by it. They just may get tickled by making us jump,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well,
that
I've
we play jokes on each other. We hide behind the door, jump out and go boo and make somebody jump. That doesn't make us evil or mean or demonic or malicious, you know, and there may be entities on the other side that have that same kind of type of sense of humor or whatever. And our problem is that we relate everything through human eyes, and not everything out there is human. You know, aliens aren't human. The ETs, they're not human. You know, dogs, cats, birds, they're not human. They can interact with us. They can learn our language.
they can
They
also
can
be
parrot
good or
it
bad.
back to us. You know, Coco can ask for, I want 9 grapes or whatever in sign language,
Yeah.
but they're not human. So we have to understand that there are all these intelligences in the universe with which we can interact, but they're not human intelligences necessarily. And we have to interact with them on that level. I wouldn't interact with Coco, the signing gorilla, the same way I interact with you.
Right.
You know, so we have to learn that there are those divisions out there of things, and learn what those things are, how they interact, what they want, what our purpose and place with them is, and incorporate that into our spiritual realm.
Well, it's really interesting. I have maybe he's gone now. I haven't felt him as much lately, but I have a ghost who used to live in this house and then deceased, and super bad guy, but he's not like an evil energy, right? He's not doing anything
Right.
malicious, and I'm just trying to get him to realize, like, it's time for you to go now. And so there's that example of what you're talking about. Like, this isn't dark, it's just a thing. It's actually,
Yeah.
he was very dark, but he's not evil or a demon. And
He was just a badass.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
and you know, sometimes it can be good to have those guys around you because they can protect you.
Right. Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, I've got some badasses around me that I appreciate because they pull my fat out of the fire every now and then.
I just wonder if you have any interpretation or ideas or impressions about our psychic readings, about if you would be willing to share them. The thing that I interpret as a demon from my early tarot experiences. Because I've often had that question if I just misinterpreted it or not, you know. Because
I think so, because over the years, what I have come to realize, I think there are lots of fail safes put in place in the spiritual realm. So they're meant to kind of scare off the seekers if the seekers aren't
ready,
pure of heart and pure of intent. And so if you begin the spiritual quest and you start a particular path and something frightens you away, you ain't got the moxie to continue. You ain't meant to continue. You ain't meant to go there. So it's kind of like the quest for this treasure. If the trolls can scare you off in spite of the fact that you have this all-powerful sword, then you better give that sword to somebody else to let them go after the gold, you know? And I think the spiritual realm has these failed safes put into place like that. And that keeps people from gaining access to power that have bad intent, that would want to use that power for malicious purposes. So I think we're tested along the way.
It definitely forced me to learn how to purify, how to, you know, align with what I want to align with, be really intentional.
There you go.
And all of those things.
So it was more a lesson
trickstery
than it was anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we continue to face those our entire lives.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know now I face things that if I didn't have the belief in my gift and the spiritual realm that I do and the spiritual forces around me that I do, and if I didn't hold on to that, I'd stop and give it up.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I'm absolutely with you
because
there.
I have that, it's like, okay, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to go on, and these good forces and powers are going to help me. But I do think that these firewalls, if you will, these spiritual firewalls are there. And I think they take the form of something negative or frightening or threatening just to see if we're going to go through it and how we're going to go through it.
Yeah, you know? I've had that same thought about darkness or what we call like darkness or evil in general, is that it actually serves a really important purpose and exactly the way you're describing.
Do you want this bad enough? And if you do, are you going to hold true to your spiritual principles to get it? Or are you going to sell out to get it?
Right.
You know, you and I could have been filthy, filthy, filthy rich if we were like these other con artists.
Yes.
You know, but we haven't been willing to sell that gift out. And I've had people ask me that, you know, well, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And I said, because the guys on the other side would cut my nuts off in my sleep. And they would. And it's like, look, I have a responsibility to my spiritual gift and to the spirit guides and the angels and things that have watched over me and that I've been given and that help me and give me information. I have a responsibility there.
Yeah.
And it's not to man's version of success, and it's not to advertising, or it's not to popularity. It's not this. My responsibility is to them.
Yeah.
And now, if over the years I hadn't had the success rate that I do with my predictions and my readings, well, okay. But I have had. And I've had that feedback from my clients from day one. And they've all let me know, hey, man, your predictions are 80, 90% accurate. They happen. They come true. They're real. The insights you've given me are accurate. They're real. They happen. The spiritual things that you claim, it's real. It happens. And it's like when I shot the TV pilot for the History Channel. We caught paranormal phenomena on film. It's real. And so by knowing that, by realizing that, I have to stick to that veracity, that code of ethics, that code of morals. And I'm not exaggerating. I know that if I ever violated that, the guys on the other side would string me up in a heartbeat. And it's not just because of that I adhere to the morals and ethics. I adhere to the morals and ethics because it's dear to me.
Yeah.
I love it. Ever since I was a kid, I was like, the bullshit detector's going off here, but what's real and what isn't, what works, what doesn't. Why are these people saying this and they know it doesn't work? And I always wanted to get to the heart of that. And that's been my motivating factor all the way through. And I get so tickled that people are, oh, John Russell psychic, he must be rich and famous and he's got 2 books out, he must be raking in money hand over fist. I hope I have enough to get fries with my burger next week is what I hope. So that's the reality of it. When you get down in the trenches and in the nitty gritty with real spiritual work, that's what happens. And unless you're lucky enough to come across some millionaire or billionaire that says, holy God, this guy's the real deal. Let me take care of your bills and give you a stipend so you don't have to worry and you can just do your spiritual work. But that hasn't happened to me
on.
yet. So, yeah, bring it on. Hallelujah. Geez, that'd take a lot of pressure off me for next month's bills. But when you, I think that the reality of real spiritual work is down in the trenches. People aren't rich and famous. They're not making money hand over fist. And I don't know anybody that is real in any facet of spirituality, whether it's religion or the psychic, paranormal realm, whatever. If you haven't completely, totally lost your faith at least once, you ain't done it yet.
Yeah.
You ain't living it right. If you try and apply in the real world what you believe and what you know, and it doesn't drive you to the point of losing faith at some point, you ain't doing it right. And then, like I say, with me, you come back from that, hopefully. But it's a rough go in the spiritual realm. It's a rough thing. Going back to that same preacher that said said the thing I love so much. He said that people come to him and want to know about the call and getting into the ministry. He said, if you can do anything other than spiritual work, do it.
Yeah.
Mow lawns, weld, drive a delivery truck. He said, if you could do anything in the world but spiritual work, do it. And I agree with him. If I could have done anything but this, I would have. But this came to me early in life, opened it up. And how do you turn your back on that?
Yeah.
You can't.
No.
So that's what I've made my life's work and my life's investigation, my life's research, and wouldn't have it any other way. It's been very difficult, but it's also been mega rewarding, and that's what you do.
I call it a sacred duty, and
it is.
And I agree with you on every single one of those aspects. It'll test you to your absolute limits, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and sometimes all at once.
All at once, yeah, right. Yeah. There have been times that I've hung my head and said, you know what? I'm just going to get my guitar, go out in the backyard and play guitar. That's all I'm going to do the rest of my life. The heck with all this, man. But you can't give it up. You can't do that. And you have so many people that rely on you. Now for decades, I've had a worldwide clientele. I've read for clients in over 40 countries.
Wow. And
to have that responsibility and that trust and that need, people call me and say, John, you got to help me here, and I have to be able to tune into the other side and connect with that and get the right answer for them. Not my answer, but the right answer coming from the other side, because I'm the channel for that. I'm the conduit for that. And, you can't give that up. You got to be there. You got to do that. So
it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But it's really great. People have asked me, have you ever looked back on your life with a regret? Wished it had changed, wish it had been different. And I can honestly say that no, I haven't. I'm happy with my gift, with the way things have turned out, the way things I've experienced it. Would I have liked more prosperous and healthy and happy times? Hell yeah. But a lot of times you don't get that down in the trenches. So you deal with it and go on.
Well, and I think you'll agree too, and I think you've even said as much in different words, but that you were really called to it and that you couldn't have probably chosen anything else if you wanted to, because this was what you were being invited to / pushed to, almost forced into.
This was what I was basically pushed into. It's like, kid, you've got this gift and here's these experiences and you've got to do this and you're going to help a lot of people as a result. And like I say, the feedback I get from people that tell me how much I've helped them and how much it's meant to them and what a difference it's made in their life. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
You can't beat that. So that's the great thing. And like I say, there's a lot of frustration with it, a lot of uncertainty with it, but we press forward, we keep going forward, we hope for more light. And it's like I tell people, it's like, look, EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, this started before Roddy. People think that Roddy was basically the originator or the inventor or the discoverer of EVP. He wasn't. It goes way back before him. I was astonished. I got this book on it and was reading the history of EVP. And the frustrating thing about EVP is for all these decades that we practiced EVP, and for all our sophisticated new equipment, we basically get our feet, what? And that's it. It's like, for God's sake, all this technology, all these years later, that's still what we're getting. And so we have so far to go. I talked with this guy that's not only a paranormal investigator, but a professional musician. And he said, John, I can do anything in the world with music and sound, anything. He said, I have all the technology, all the knowledge, all the skill, anything you want to do with any piece of sound or any piece of music or anything, I can do it. I hear these EVP voices. I cannot find the frequency that they come through on. And he and I discussed that. And I said, that's going to be the breakthrough. When somebody discovers the frequency that they use to bring that voice through the noise, that's going to be the major breakthrough in the paranormal. And we're going to start having real-time two-way conversations with people on the other side and with entities on the other side. But we haven't got there yet. For all our technology, for all these years, for all this research, it's so frustrating and it's so slow. And I tell people, I said, when I go out in the field to do an investigation, I take the most advanced, the most sophisticated, the most sensitive, the most knowledgeable piece of equipment there is, me.
Yes, I was just going to say, don't we already have that technology?
That's it. And we still outperform the technology. So
yeah.
if people would do some serious research there between melding psychics and technology, it's like I told Brandon Fugel again on Skinwalker Ranch. I tweeted him and I said, Brandon, I said, science is great, but science cannot catch the paranormal yet in its entirety. We can't do it. It can't keep up with the paranormal. Do the science, but bring in the wizards.
Yeah.
Bring in the psychics, bring in the people that you vetted that are legitimate, that are good. And what happened? He brought the rabbi out. The rabbi did the ritual, the portal opened, they caught it on camera. It's like, there you go. There it is.
Wow.
So we have to marry that. We have to bring all of that together. And we have to do it without the preconceived notion of, I'm always right. This is the way to do it, because we don't know. We have to ask the other side to guide us in this and say, okay, how do we progress? How do we get further? How do we get more answers? How do we get better answers? And, how do we interact with that invisible realm in a better, more meaningful way?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a lot still. But one of the things that hampers that, I think, is going back to what hampers everything else, people's preconceived notions. People that are debunkers and don't want to marry the two, don't see that it can be done or whatever. And so we have a long way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. The liars and the fakers, too, do so much damage. Well,
they do.
I love talking to you, John. I want to see John wrestle on Skinwalker Ranch, and then I'll be happy. But cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Let's tweet Brandon Fugel those things. Tell him to get John Russell out there.
There you go. I'll be out there with my walker and my oxygen. Here I am, guys.
That was perfect. Well, and I want you to tell us again about your books, about where people can find them, about anything else you have to share with people, what the best ways to interact with you and support you are.
Yeah. If you want a reading with me, I always take new clients. If you want a reading, you can go to johnrussell.net. And that has all the information you need about me and to schedule a reading. If you want to read my books, you can find information about those at writingwithghosts.net or aknockintheattic.net. And each one of those websites is dedicated to the individual book. And I'm really proud of those books now. They're starting to garner some really prestigious awards.
Yeah.
And doing really well in that regard, and getting a lot of good feedback that'll tell you about the books. And it has a ton of links to where to buy the books. You can get them online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, a lot of the small mom and pop bookstores, Aid Books, Google Books, just about everybody has them. Walmart, they're available online at Walmart. So that's where you can get the books. And like I say, you can go to those websites, Writing with Ghosts, Ghost is plural, writingwithghosts.net, or a knockintheattic.net. That'll tell you about me, about the books, and give you links to buy them, so on and so forth. Or you can go directly to Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, enter it in the search box, and it'll bring it up, and you can get it there. Those books are all available, like at Barnes & Noble, either Nook book or paperback. Amazon has it in Kindle or paperback. So available in all those formats. And then I'm in the process of writing my third book now, which is going to be a lot of fun when I finally get it out. It's titled 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. And each chapter will take one specific spiritual technique, define it, explain what it is in detail, and then teach you how to do it, whether you have any experience in it or not. It's going to take you step by step, lead you through how to do it and learn it and get good at it. And then the real world application of that technique. So it's not just a party trick or something to impress the friends. It's something you can use daily in your life. So still working on that, almost halfway through it. And hopefully that'll come out sometime this year, maybe the middle of this year. We'll see. I've had some health problems, issues up and down, been in and out of the hospital doing these things. So some things have set me back. And last year, I was interviewed over 70 times last year.
Awesome.
But it was a little tiring at the end of the year. I said, you know what? I'm taking some time off. I'm going to enjoy the holidays, my friends, my family. I'm not even going to write on my book. I'm just going to recuperate.
Yeah.
Still had my clients, of course, but it was like, I'm just going to recuperate. And then 2022 hit it again. So getting back in the saddle there. So I'll get back with the book and hopefully get that out the middle of this year.
Oh, I'm so excited for that book. So helpful for people to be able to gain that sort of insight and understanding of how to apply those skills. And I love that you're able to
I think
share
it'll be
that
a lot
with
of fun for people. Everybody's pretty excited about it. And people keep asking me, when's the book coming out? When's the book coming out? I'm working on it as fast as I can.
Oh, no.
So it'll get there.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have you back when that does come out. And I do want you to share with people what your final thoughts are to take away as they leave the show tonight.
Well, you know, I think, look, the other side is real. And I think we have to acknowledge that we don't understand everything about it or get everything we want from it. But if you're seeking the good and seeking the light and you're persistent in that, and when you ask, if you get quiet and then meditate and listen to the information you're given, the guidance you're given, whether it comes in a dream or a vision or through someone else or whatever. And then once you receive that, act on it. It doesn't do any good to get it if you don't act on it. And I think that's the takeaway I'd give everybody from tonight is to ask and then to listen and then to act on what you get. And the other side is there waiting to help us. They are not there as a puppy dog wagging their tail going, you want the lottery numbers? I got them. That's not the scenario. That's not going to happen. But if you're saying, look, I want to be a better human being. I want to get a better job. How do I get there? How do I improve my health? How do I grow spiritually? Ask for it. Listen for the response you get and then act on the response you get. Doesn't do any good to get the information if you don't do anything with it.
Perfect, beautiful, and true. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to the paranormal, motorcyclist, and badass, John Russell. John, thanks so much for coming back tonight.
Lindsay, it's a delight. Look forward to doing it again. Thank you so much. God bless everybody.
And too much goes right to ignore it. Can you believe we've been human on Earth for at least the very thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and we're still going? Every moment, billions of souls make choices, mistakes, and motions that swirl the energies of every other entity here, and still we persist. Every single moment, billions of souls have accidents and fortuitous alignments alike, and still the world is whole and standing. The entire time, entropy or evil or anything else you'd like to call the degradation has been pulling at us to give in and give up, and still we continue to skip, jump, smell flowers, rest, giggle, cuddle, and create. We cannot be stopped. There's nothing we can lose, and we will always keep moving forward. So honor all that goes right, and until you see it all, day, every day, in all things, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Hey.
Nasty motherfucker with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertising. advertisement, bone-plated nickel. Fire rate, automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack, fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust the towels, no rags. Straight melt dash, dust the ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface. And rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons. Cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet. Lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it. It's a secret. Now you're nobody. Label somebody. Trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.